From deep in the bowels of God's blue-green earth, it's the Jesse T Show. Oh my goodness, what an intro this boy can give. Don Pardo. Watch out. Wait a minute. Don Pardo's not alive anymore, is he? Yeah, no, he's gone. Saturday Night Live. Yeah. I miss Don Pardo. I do. The guy that replaced him was okay. He's okay, but he's not Don Pardo. I'm sorry. ADD is checking in here. I'm a little sidetracked. Hey, we're live. It's time for the Jesse T Show. It's good to have you along. I'm live in studio. Yeah, right here, trying to get everything connected and working, and it's all working much better than it did last week. My goodness, last week was a snafu. You know what snafu stands for? It came out of World War II, and it's situation normal, all fouled up. Actually, they used a different word instead of fouled up. Snafu, and it was a snafu last week, but we're here together. It's good to have you along with me, Jesse T, on Facebook.com/Jesse Terrero. Hey, we'd like to have you there. Also, we're going to be out on Instagram here in a moment, and on Twitter and LinkedIn and all those other great facilities that dare to take this crazy man in the afternoons. And I'm in here a little bit early today because I wanted to do something special for my guy in Chicago, because he's always suffering from that weather. You know, it's springtime, but it's still winter in Chicago, because spring is like winter in Chicago. It doesn't get really warm. Like, we got 80 degrees here in Southern California today. My goodness, blue skies, blue oceans, whales at Redondo Beach Pier over the weekend, and skiing up in the mountains. What better life can you have? Except, you know my saying, there's one problem. There's just way too many people living in Southern California. Please don't come here anymore. We don't need you. We don't need any more aliens from anywhere, legal or illegal. Please go somewhere else. Go to Chicago. Yes, we need you to move up to Illinois, and then you probably want to go back home because it's so cold there in the wintertime and humid in the summertime. But, you know, one of the things it does produce in Chicago, Illinois, very, very smart people. See, out here, you don't get smart people out here. You just get a bunch of surfer airheads. By the way, you know who just passed away? The king of surf guitar. He just died today, 83 years old. Man, the Ventures, the guy who started the Ventures a long time ago, just great. So the king of surf guitar died. Everybody's passing on real quick. I mean, it's amazing how many great artists and just the celebrities and VIPs that are going already this year, 2019. And that's one of the things that you can't do. You can't take things for granted in life. And one of the things you can't do is you can't take getting wealthy, rich, and buying a house. You can't take that for granted either. You have to plan. You have to have some strategies. And so what I decided to do, I met a fella in some other business adventures that we're doing, and he is just so smart. He lives in Chicago. You see the tie-in? I made the tie-in there somehow. I got to it, I know. But he is just so terrific. And let me tell you a little bit about this gentleman that wrote a couple of great books, Michael Trickey. And this was one book that he has, Finding Home. And we did talk about real briefly there. I just touched the base. You got to prepare when you find a home. And, you know, real estate is the number one road to wealth in this world. And it starts a lot of times with people finding the first home that they ever bought, and it starts right there. And Mike Trickey is terrific. The guy has been around for a long time. He's a CPA with 35 years of experience in the financial services industry. He has acquired and sold single-family homes, condos, apartment buildings, and commercial properties. He's also helped many people. And this is the key, young and old. You're never too old to buy. You're never too young to buy. You just got to have a strategy, tactics, and a plan, and do it right from the beginning, because there's an old cliche, if it don't start right, it don't end right. If it start right, it ends right. You know, finding a home and the right home for you is what it's all about. And this book, Finding Home, that he put together here a couple of years ago, is a terrific book. He lives in Chicago with his lovely bride, Diane, and his beloved dog, Jesse. Oh, no, that's Chessie. Jesse, that's right. I knew we had a connection there somewhere, Mike Trickey. Mike Trickey, everybody. Hey!
Hi, Jesse.
Yeah, what an introduction. My goodness. Lord, help me. Also, he's written another book here called Finding Home Over 50, and we're going to talk a little bit about this book. So if you're over 50 years old and you want to find a home, there's a plan for that. And one of the things in this book that you're really going to like to hear about is there's a whole schedule of plans and tactics and strategies that help you understand that maybe getting the right kind of home for yourself at 50 is important, not just buying any type of home. And he talks about pensions and Social Security and all that and how that can help out there. So we're going to get right to it. Though I do want to talk about one fella, terrific actor. You've seen him in Mambo Kings, and he was in Judge Dredd. He played the evil scientist doctor with Sylvester Stallone, was the kind of anti-hero cop of the future that came back. And we're talking about the great actor, Armin Assante. And Armin Assante wrote a really nice little piece. And I don't know how much money you had to pay him, Mike, but, let me know, because I want him to write something nice like this about me. That's right. Yes, Armand, we love you, baby. Michael Trickey has provided an expert's guide for anyone who truly wishes to realize one of the most significant investments of their lives and to implement a game plan to create consistent fruition for the rest of their lives in doing so. Wow, that guy can write. This is beautiful. Michael became not just an advisor for me, a financial planner and educator. He taught me an invaluable lesson, and that is we, the consuming public, this is an important concept right here, are truly not educated to the nomenclature that banks write into each and every document that may very well be the one most important thing that changes your life. Perhaps America's most learned non-lawyer expert in mortgage law, Michael, provides this book that, without a doubt, should be made mandatory reading for everyone, and I'm profoundly grateful to have Michael in my life, and you'll feel the same after reading this. Did that cost you about $25.42 for that one?
It might have been 30. I can't recall.
Oh, it might have been. Yeah, okay. Well, that's good. We got a little feedback coming back, like a little echo there on the echo chamber.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Tell me. Let me see if I can hear that again, Mike.
Can you hear it better now?
Yeah, now he's better. So, are you doing something on your end? Are you touching any microphones or any anything?
I adjusted one microphone on this end, so that might have done it.
Yeah, it's coming from him. It is coming from. It's definitely coming from that side. So, do you have some earbuds or a headphone mic?
Certainly.
Can you plug those into your computer?
Yes.
Because it's coming through the speakers, I'm telling you, back through the mic that's built into the computer. Yes.
Okay. Give me just one moment here, and I'll plug it in.
Okay. Yeah, I bet you. What do you think? I got $5 on this one.
I think you're right.
Yeah. It's the only place we've eliminated everything else. Yes, this is the kind of talk you won't hear on Channel 7 Eyewitness News. No, you'll never hear this. No. But that's okay, because we like to give you the whole shebang, man. We don't mess around, I just come straight with it. Whatever happens, happens. So I think that's going to eliminate the problem, because we've had that problem before. I've had that problem when I've called in on outside devices and the feedback. Well, I always have a problem. I've been a problem ever since I was born. I swear to God. I try not to be a problem. So I've just decided that my problem is just going to be your problem the rest of your life. Hey, did you plug yourself in, Michael?
Yes. Can you still hear me?
I think so. Let's see. Talk. Tell me something. Tell me about what you just did.
Well, I plugged an earbud in. Does that work?
No, we're getting that on that end, and I don't know why that's happening. All right, well, let's do this.
Does he have speakers on?
Do you have speakers on, Michael?
Not anymore.
Okay, so we're going to do this. Call 424 247 946 424 227-9461. 424-227-9461. We're gonna take the auditory. Kill the mic on your. Okay, you just call 424-227-9461. We're gonna bring you up on the phone line on the phone, and we'll sync up the sound together on this end. That will eliminate it. 424-227-9461. That'll be the direct line into us. And once you call that, then we'll be able to sync it up on this end and make that happen. Anyway, one of the things we're going to be talking about today in his books is a strategy and a plan. And that's really important that we have a strategy and a plan in order to accomplish what is it that you want to accomplish. And the American dream, actually, and of course, that's home ownership, having a good job and having home ownership. That's what it's all about. Now, we just got that call, and everything good. Can you hear me, Michael?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me now?
Oh, beautiful. It's perfect. Okay, so you might want to back down my headphones just a little bit now because I'm going to get a bunch of feedback. Thank you. Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I got it. Sounds good. I don't know because I was like moving my head too close to the microphone, you know? Don't get me going. I'll totally get off track. You know that. I'll be talking about fast cars and fast women here in a second. And I'll go home and get in trouble. Michael Trickey, everybody. He's back with us. Yes, Michael. We got you loud and clear on the request line, and we're syncing it up on this end, so we got it covered. You know, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. Isn't that right, Mike?
Multiple ways, yes. Hopefully this one will work.
It worked beautifully, absolutely. I appreciate your patience hanging in there because sometimes when we do this stuff on the fly and live, no matter where you're at, you never know what you're going to get coming at you, but we kind of work things out, so I appreciate the patience of it all. It sort of reminds you of early TV, you know, when they were live. Pretty amazing in that respect, how we can solve this stuff and get it going. So, Michael, talk to me about this first book and Finding Home. How did you come together in terms of getting an idea to put it in the form that it's written? And one of the things that I really liked about reading this book, it's almost like reading a movie film. It's like reading a script. You have two great characters and you kind of sit down with them. Why that way of putting this kind of dry information, and that is how to find a home? What inspired you to do that?
Well, it kind of developed over time. I was putting together the information, and you know, as you mentioned, I've been in the industry for a long time, and one of the things that I've done over the last about 20 years is I've been building databases. We track tens of millions of loans on a monthly basis, and we see how they perform. And I saw a lot of what happened in the in the 2006 through 2009 timeframe. There was a lot of distress. A lot of people were having problems, and the target audience for this book, which is, I guess, the millennial type age group, really first-time home buyers are the ones that it's most targeted at, but anyone about to buy a home would benefit from it. But I was, at the time of writing it, I was targeting that age group because those people had come of age, really, during the distress period in the market. And I have two daughters, and they were in that age group, I think at the time 26 and 28 or something like that. And I was writing about the concepts, what I was seeing in the market, why people were having troubles. You know, they had over-leveraged, borrowed too much money, or they had gotten a loan with really terms that weren't favorable to the borrower and such. And I started talking to my daughters about it, and also their friends who were about the same age. And I'm talking to them about it, and there were a lot of words. You know, real estate, like anything else, has its own vocabulary. A lot of words that they were asking me to explain what things meant. You know, tell us about credit, tell us about, you know, our financial assets and so forth. So as I was doing it, I realized that rather than writing just in almost a textbook style, that it would be better to talk in a conversational style. So I created characters in the book, and I had a young couple, Jack and Eva, talking with other people, mainly their father, about what they were trying to do in finding a house and, you know, how to qualify for a mortgage and get their credit in line. And it just kind of developed that way.
Yeah, you know, presentation of the information is always the key to someone listening and to somebody really learning it and understanding it, how you communicate that to them. And that's one of the things with our textbooks in our schools today. They're so dry, they're unimaginative, and it's people really don't absorb that information unless they're totally into that topic, and that's what their whole life is about. So put it into that story form is really kind of a cool way to grab someone's attention and get them to ask more questions about what they're doing.
And that's kind of how the conversation flows. It's really kitchen table, I call it kitchen table conversations, where the family is just kind of sitting around and they're talking about it. And, have you thought about this? And, how come when we did this, it didn't work out right? And then a response. And, all of us in life, we learn from talking with other people. We learn things on our own, but sometimes we get the perspective we need by having conversations. And that's what I was trying to do in this, is add perspective to each of the topics.
Yeah, and because the information that you give, you can basically get this information anywhere with the internet and the exposure and all that. But one of the things we find in the marketplace, and have you found that the professionals that actually do this, they don't really explain a lot of what they're doing to the consumer today. And why is that?
Well, there's probably a lot of reasons. One is that, there's a little bit of a fear that they'll disclose too much or scare people off. Another reason, though, may be that you don't really know what a person is thinking when you're talking to them. Both people are kind of feeling their way along. And the professionals are trying to tell the people what they need to know. They can't always read your mind. They don't know what level of education you have in the specific topic area. So they'll go into it, but frankly, a lot of folks have been in the industry so long, they've got their own vocabulary. They'll use, 3 words to describe a paragraph concept because those are buzzwords or whatever in the industry. And you're playing catch up trying to figure out what they're saying, and by then they're on to the next topic. So it's just I don't think any of it's really intentional. They're just trying to give you the information you want, but they're so used to speaking in a closed circle.
Yeah, that assumption that you know more than perhaps what you may know or may not know. They're assuming that you know something or along that line. And what's that old cliche? When you assume something, you make an ass out of you and me. And so I think it also may contribute towards the idea of litigation and lawsuits and liability too. I would imagine that has something to do with no one wants to say too much anymore about anything.
Yeah, I think that's what I was getting at with the first point. I didn't want to come right out and say litigation, but obviously we live in a society that's a little bit more litigious, and people have to be careful what they say, so that they may unintentionally mislead somebody because the receiver interprets something differently than what was meant, and then people have to argue about it.
Yeah, one of the things in the book, Finding Home, is that you have this sort of storyline of this family, and they're consulting with their elders, their father, and they're learning the process as they go in a very family kind of friendly way. But yet you have a lot of detailed information in here that you can't find out there in the way in which that you put the schedules and the graphs and the strategy and how to break things down to make sure you're making the right decision. So you have this duality going on in this book, which is really cool. You have this kind of colloquial, kind of happy-spirited discussion with the family, but then you go hardcore on some very specific things that you have to do to make sure you don't end up in a bad situation. That's interesting how you put that together and you were able to marry that. Was that difficult to do?
Yeah, it's very difficult to take complicated concepts that can be complicated concepts and put them into everyday words. That's the hardest part of writing a book like this. And I made use of my daughters and their friends as a focus group of sorts. They read a lot of my early drafts and said, "Hey, we just don't understand this," or "Could you say this in a different way?" I knew what I had to get through. There's some basic, very basic tenets that have to be communicated very specific steps if you're going to be successful that you really need to follow. And how to put that into understandable everyday terms is the real challenge.
Why is it that this kind of stuff isn't taught in our school systems anywhere, from kindergarten to graduating from college? How come it's not taught?
That's the $1 million question. There's a lot of things that aren't taught that are very useful. They try to give us the basics in school, how to write sentences, how to do basic math, but they don't get into some of the more practical aspects of life. Everybody in life, has to have shelter one way or another. And the majority of people in the country end up buying a home, buying a condo, a house, a townhouse, a manufactured home, maybe even a 2-flat or a 3-flat or whatever. It's something that we all do, and you would think that there would be some aspect in 12 years of education, or even in the required core requirements for college.
Something.
That would have it.
A little something. Just touch one day of it. They don't even get a chance to even get one day of it. Any economics or history or any kind of, so many schools don't even have civics anymore. So in their curriculum, so they don't get this at all. So people don't even know what it is they need to know or how to find what it is that they need to know to do what they want to accomplish. And that's really kind of a sad situation and a commentary on our educational system in this country. That's absolutely for sure. But the thing about this book, which is interesting, is that you kind of, your company, which is a very heavy data and company that does a lot of analytics and matrices and these types of things, collects a lot of information. You deal with a lot of the big corporations and even the United States government. And coming out of that terrible subprime blow-up after 2008, really kind of started in 2006, but really hit us hard the last end of that, the tens in the 2000s. Your company kind of exploded on this scene. So you were able to compile a ton of great data, which perhaps maybe they didn't have before then, or anybody could take that data and see the tendencies and kind of a prediction. It's almost like a way to predict what's going to happen in the future. That's really cool to have that. And you find this in this book, and you get that experience from you. So, data is really important, isn't it?
Yes, it is. What we do is we look at loans, my company, we look at loans that either prepay early or pay every month just as agreed, or for some reason go delinquent and eventually might move into foreclosure. And we look at the characteristics of the borrowers, of the types of properties, of the location, of how the loan product itself. Was it a fixed rate loan for 30 years or a fixed rate loan for 15 years or an adjustable rate mortgage or whatever? We look at just millions of loans and look at those characteristics and say, okay, what is typical amongst people who end up not being able to make their payments and lose their home? And those are the characteristics that I try to, in this book, talk to people and say, look, this is how you get yourself in trouble. Try to avoid doing this, and here's how you can avoid doing this.
Yeah, that's the key. You not only give them the painting of this is how all the other people got themselves in trouble, and this is how people get themselves in trouble normally, but here's an answer so that you don't get in trouble. Follow this plan.
That's correct. And you follow that plan. As I said a little earlier, some of the younger people came of age during this trial period, and so now they're a bit gun-shy to get into their first home. And it doesn't have to be like that. If you know, just with a little bit of information and some how-to, some questionnaires, a few little spreadsheets and such, you can lead yourself down the right path. And you can learn how not to borrow more than you can afford to pay back, how you can weather any sort of storm. And in the meantime, you're finding a home that's right for you, right for your lifestyle, where you want to live, how you want to live. It's once you have the basics, it's not that hard. It's just that you haven't been taught.
That's really the key. They haven't been taught. And one could cruise the internet. One could find all of this information, but it's predicated on the fact that you know what you're looking for. I mean, if you don't know how to get to the other side of the forest and it's nighttime, you're never going to make it. You're going to bump into a bunch of trees before you finally get out of the forest if you do. And so this is sort of like a map to get you through there. And the whole first part of the book is really covering the most important part of that process, and that's the finance game.
Yes, that's correct. One of the things, you could spend hours and hours on the internet. There's a lot of stuff out there, but you have to remember, a large percentage of what is out there is trying to sell you on something.
Yeah, there's a sales aspect to it, right?
That's correct. And this is more of an educational. I'm not a commissioned person. I'm not somebody who makes money off of you getting an appraisal or a house inspection. Those are all important aspects of it. And I'm going to tell you how those are important. But I'm also going to tell you, what your alternatives are and how you go about doing it. And that's what you really need. Then you can look at all those, the more marketing type things on the internet and find people and find houses. There's tremendous tools out there now on the internet that were never there when I was that young. Websites like Zillow and Realtors.com and Redfin and those types of things that will help you find houses in the area you want, in your price range, with the features you want. They have tremendous filtering capabilities.
We're talking with Michael Trickey. He's a expert on the process of real estate financing and real estate purchasing and selling and understanding the patterns of how people buy, what they buy, what they do well, what they do wrong. He's written a couple of great books. One of the books we're talking about right now is called Finding Home. And you can get this book anywhere on any of the online book services, and I believe you can go into Barnes & Noble, and if they don't have it, you can ask for Finding Home by Michael Trickey. They'll look it up, and they'll order it for you there and bring it into Barnes & Noble or what have you. But this is a terrific book. If you guys are looking for a manual done in a very friendly and nice way of communicating some very difficult concepts and information, this book, Finding Home, is terrific. And we've been talking with Michael here for the last 20 minutes or so about this book. We're going to talk about another book in a second, but I had a question to ask you. What was the primary problem with this 2008 subprime blow-up, or this last really horrendous economic situation that really started with and was built around a lot of homes, people losing their homes, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? What was the cause of all that? Was it the tendencies of Congress and the banks just not caring, or was there some definite problems with the consumer in terms of them making so many wrong decisions? In your assessment, looking back, what was the main culprit there?
That's a good question. I start chapter 5 of the book talking about what some of the major reasons for the blow-up were. And believe me, there was enough blame to go around everywhere. What really happened is some of our leaders wanted to get more people into ownership of a home, because home ownership is a very stabilizing thing for our economy. People tend to take better care of their homes when they're owning rather than renting. It provides stability. Historically, home prices have gone up over time, so it's one way that people can build core wealth for themselves. And so, the idea of getting more people into homes was a good one. The issue, though, is there's a limit. That some people just really don't have enough reserves or don't have a steady enough job or lifestyle that they can safely get themselves into a home.
Yeah, didn't the Congress and the legislature change the rules by which Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and these are large organizations, folks, that buy up mortgages in the secondary market and continue to fuel the ability for banks to give out more loans, and they're backed by you and I, the taxpayer. But didn't legislation change those rules that kind of forced or allowed Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the other organizations to have to buy some really difficult loans from some of the banks?
Yeah, back there was a legislative push, a presidential push. Back, I think it was President Clinton,
Right.
who was interested in getting home ownership up about 5 more percentage points, and they started encouraging all sorts of financial institutions to make it easier for people to get into loans. You know, it was a noble cause, but the issue is they kind of ran into the law of diminishing returns, right? You can only get so many people in if they really can't afford it. So they encourage banks through regulatory processes to make loans to people who may not have qualified under normal circumstances. They also encouraged the GSEs, Fannie and Freddie, to get more involved in the sector as well. And with these two parts of the market coming in to a lower part of the credit spectrum, it caused a lot of liquidity, and the institutions that weren't banks, in order to compete, they had to, shall we say, loosen their underwriting guidelines. They made it a lot easier for people to get loans. You started seeing ads for no money down loans, and start at a really low interest rate, and it'll adjust later on. And
Yeah, I remember on the broker side of it, because I'm a real estate broker and done loans for a long time, decades. And I remember when you could only go to Bank of America or Chase or you could only go to the banks that were giving loans. They had their own in-house loan departments, and that's all you could go to. That's all there was in the market. And then all of a sudden, mortgage bankers and then mortgage brokers started getting involved, and then private source of funds on these second trustees. And then the interest rates were going down. I mean, the down payments from 20% to 10% to 15 to 10 to 5 to 3, and then 100% loans. I was saying when this was happening, because this is what the consumer was asking for, because that's what everybody was doing. But I kept saying to myself, man, there's got to be an end to this at some point. This can't go on forever. Was that, from your point of view, was that something that they knew from the beginning, that there had to be an end to this at some point in the future, or were they just thinking at the legislative level this was going to be able to go on forever?
Well, I wish I knew what they were thinking.
Yeah.
There were two other things that happened. One is that, as we approached the millennium, 2000, there was what now has proven to be irrational, but there were fears that the financial system could break down, that all the computer programs were only programmed with 2 digits and for the year, and once we rolled over, that the computers wouldn't know if...
Right, I remember that. Right.
And so there was some concern over that. And so the Federal Reserve, in an effort to try to ease troubles that could happen, it seemed that their monetary policy became pretty loose, and more money flowed into the economy, and interest rates were at a relatively historic low level, although the last few years have been really low levels. But and so more and more people were, because of the liquidity in the marketplace, because there were more people making the loans, because rates were coming down a little bit, were piling in to the market, which is part of what the intent was. But it's just like anything else. When you cause demand to go up through artificial, incentives, it pushes the price of the product up. I mean, same thing happened with college tuition.
Right.
Once they made student loans real easy. Look what happened to college tuition. The demand became so great, and it's a noble goal to get more people educated. But once the demand went up, so did the price.
Well, and the price of bribery went up too.
Well,
we
can do that segment later. But then what happened is, there's a long-term trend to housing prices. And what happened is housing prices started rising above the trend.
Yeah.
In some areas, it was 10% or more above the trend. And houses started becoming unaffordable. And just at the point that houses are way above trend, all these people were getting in with no money down loans.
Oh, boy.
Paid teasers.
Yeah.
And then it's like, ring around the rosy. All of a sudden, the music stopped. And
their mortgages went up 30% from the previous month.
That's right. There was like a sudden surge, and then the music stopped, and there weren't enough chairs for everybody. And it all kind of collapsed. And when things correct back to the long-term trends, they just don't go to the long-term trend line. They overcorrect. It's like a pendulum swinging back, and that's what happened.
That's what I've been telling my wife for many years. I'm just overcorrecting, darling. Just, Mama T, I'm just overcorrecting. Come on now.
That's right.
Yes, but I'm still getting cheese sandwiches and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for dinner, so I guess I'm either going too far or not gone far enough, one or the other.
There's at least 3 of the food groups in that diet.
Isn't that the truth? Well, the cannabis show was on right before us, so maybe I should smoke some ganja too. Oh well, what can I tell you? But you're right. The whip back, the flashback, the slash back, the boomerang effect really just cascaded tremendously, and it started affecting every part of our economy at that time. But the country has made a turnaround. But do you see the same types of things that happened then, at least similar in some areas, happening again? Because now all of a sudden I am seeing these kind of loans coming back into the marketplace.
Yeah. Well, I used to call it the 7-year stupid cycle, because we do the same stupid things every 7 years. Now, because the Federal Reserve kept rates low for 10 years, the cycle has extended out. But what happens is we all make mistakes and we try to learn from them, but after time goes by, people move on to new positions, new jobs, and a new crop of people comes in, a new crop of sellers. And
new babies are born every 20 years, right?
That's correct. And it seems like we have to learn the same things all over again. And so that's part of why, you asked me why I wrote the book and how I got to it. I'm trying to disrupt that 7-year cycle a little bit. I'm trying to provide people with an education. Even during the worst of times, Jesse, the majority of mortgages stayed okay. People didn't lose their houses. 90% of the people were just fine. But 10% was a very severe disruption to an overall market of that size, and you saw it. And the people that didn't have problems are the ones that either they were on their third house and they had learned some things, or they'd gone through the trouble once and they learned their lessons. They had put their loans together correctly. They hadn't borrowed too much money. They hadn't picked a loan that started at a real low payment, and then after 3 years the payment jumped, sometimes doubling, so they could no longer afford it.
Well, you're right, Michael. And not only was it the home buying process and the banks and the general public being conditioned to purchase a certain way for about 4 or 5 or 6 years, but when they would refinance their houses, the ones that had houses, or they take home equity lines of credit and whatever, pay off their credit cards, you're supposed to not drive up your credit cards then again. But they would then drive up their credit cards and buy the big brand new car and an SUV, and they'll be within 6 months to a year back at what they just got out of, and then they have no other reserve to get out of the thing they just put themselves back in. So that's sort of what happened too, quite a bit in terms of the level that I was seeing.
Yeah, especially in California where you are, where the home prices can go up very quickly. They can also go down relatively quickly, but the long-term pattern is that homes go up more quickly in price in markets such as California. They're a little bit more volatile, both up and down. And what happens is that when your house goes up a lot and you refinance and treat your house like it's an ATM almost and take out more and more money, when things turn down again, when you have your normal down cycle, and not to speak of an exaggerated cycle like we had, you find you owe more than your house is worth during those down parts of the cycle. And then anything happens, your car breaks down, your refrigerator goes out, and your furnace blows out. You might not have furnaces out there, but
right.
We do here. But if they all go out at the same time, how are you going to pay it all plus your mortgage?
Yeah, you go without something. That's what happens. Or you just it's a very precarious position to get put in. Things don't get fixed. We got good weather out here pretty much for the year round, but places like Chicago and that vortex you guys just went through this last winter or this winter, I mean, your furnace goes out. You got human icicles, human popsicles in people's houses. I mean, that's basically just what happens. They act like big freezers, these brick houses. It's amazing how cold it really gets. And so you put yourself in a bad position. So a book like this, Finding Home, is actually a treasure because it teaches you with the different balance sheets that you put together and scheduling and how you come to the idea of if you get over this particular number, you shouldn't be buying or you should be saving more. This really gives a playbook. This is like a playbook, an NFL playbook. And if you just follow this book, Finding Home by Michael Trickey, and you can get it anywhere, folks, you won't get in trouble. If you follow this book, it's conservative, but if you won't get in trouble. And you don't want to get in trouble. That's not a good place to be. Talking with Michael Trickey, 35 years in the financial services industry. He's produced a couple of books here, written a couple of great books, Finding Home. It covers every aspect of the finding home process. We've been focusing on the financial aspect of it because, you got no money, you got no honey. So the money is the most important thing. And the old cliche is, you make your money at the point of purchase, not the point of sale. So, if you've got good finances coming in, you can get yourself a better interest rate. You can get yourself maybe a better down payment structure going on, a better type of loan for you in that respect. And this book will teach you how to do that. There's one of the other things about this book, which I found, and we'll end up on this because I want to talk about the other book, Michael, is that you take this all the way out to the end when people move in the neighborhood, they move into their house, and what they should do next. You take this all the way out. It's the whole complete process. All right, and I thought that was fascinating. What was behind that choice to take it all the way out so far to the end?
Well, it's once you have the home, or once you've found the home that you want to move into, that's your halfway home. You so to speak. You still have to get the contract in place, get your loan put together, and you have to then get ready for the closing. You have to make sure you know how you want to hold the title. You have to know what you're going to take to closing with you. What do you need? And then when you get there, you have to know what you're going to get back out. Make sure they bring you the keys and the garage door opener.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. And when you're getting ready to move, I've moved a lot in my life, and I'll tell you what, there's an easy way to do it and a hard way to do it. And the easy way is to make sure where you're moving into is ready before you get there.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to paint the walls when you don't have boxes stacked up all over or get the carpet cleaned or whatever. And so I just want to kind of lay it out for people. Once you have the home, this is a good order to do things. And if you're going to move, make sure you're not planning the truck to be moving during rush hour or any other stressful times. There's so many little things that are so easy. If you just sit and listen to it, you go, oh, that makes sense. And I just try to help you help you think about all those things.
Well, once again, it comes back to the idea. None of this stuff is taught to us by anybody in our lives as we're growing up. If we're lucky, we have some parents or somebody close to us that we can trust. And the book sets it up that way, where like the family gets together and they talk about this, someone who has the experience. But none of this is taught to us, and that's a crime that none of this is taught to us as we're growing up in a formalized educational system. And that's part of what creates the problem. And, my political ideology on that says that's created on that way on purpose. But that's a whole nother discussion for another time. The Finding Home Over 50 is a second book. We don't have a lot of time, Michael, but the most important thing about this book, Finding Home Over 50, guys, if you're over 50 years old, you can still buy a house. But the reasons change for buying a house and how you buy a house and the type of mortgages and finances you put together to buy a house, it all changes to some degree. But one of the things here that I really liked about this book, Michael, is that you actually put a game plan together that considers Social Security, considers people's retirement accounts, 401ks, this kind of stuff. And it's almost like a roadmap to follow as an investment strategy that you would get from a certified financial planner. I thought that was ingenious. It's about the middle of this book here, halfway through it.
Yeah, it's funny because I've had a lot of a lot of financial planners who've looked at it. They come back to me and they say, "Oh my gosh, you got all this stuff about Medicare and Social Security all laid out so nicely." And they talk about, one of the things you have to do when you're thinking about retirement is, take a realistic assessment of how long, assuming your health holds out and everything, you expect to live, and how much money you've got. And then, if you're used to making so much per year and you're going to live another 35 years, well, you kind of know how much you're going to need. So how are you going to get it? Well, some of it might come from a pension, some of it may come from Social Security, some of it may come from a part-time job. But this kind of helps you to sit down and think about that and really figure out, what am I going to need? And then, not just what do I need, but, I've been spending my whole life taking care of things and working and getting my family raised and stuff. I've got a whole bucket list of things I'd like to accomplish and haven't done. And so what I try to go through in the book is, hey, how do you coordinate where you're going to live and how you're going to live with what you still want to do? Enjoy your retirement years, and you may be able to line up where you live and what kind of house you're living in and such with what you want to do.
Yeah, that's one of the masteries of this book, Finding Home Over 50. You cover all that information that, once again, as we approach senior citizenship and older, once again, none of this is taught anywhere. Even to folks who have owned property before, as they get older, the whole dynamic of ownership and life changes financially, and none of this is talked about anywhere, and that's just a shame. And that's where we see so many seniors get into trouble. I mean, we got cool things like reverse mortgages, and I wish we had more time to talk about that. We have a lot of cool stuff, short-term mortgages, 15 years, these types of things that can come into play. You got REITs that come into play, but you cover all this stuff in this book, and you can get this book online at all your fine bookstores. But you've got a cool website for both of these books. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I knew that this market changes and laws change and preferences change and that sort of thing, and I can only put out a new edition every so often. So I wanted to have a way for people to keep current. So for each of the two books, I've established a website. For the first book, it's called FindingHomeBook.com, and the second one, it's called FHO50. So FHO50 for Finding Home Over 50.com. And on the site, you'll find a lot of things. You'll find an expanded glossary. You'll find other websites that give you information on specific topics. But very importantly, on each of the two websites is an area where you can download all sorts of questionnaires and lists and calculators and charts and such that are covered in the books. In both books, I have characters, and I have all these different forms and questionnaires and such that help them decide what they want to do and how much they can afford and all that. And I fill those forms in for the couples in the books. Well, on the website, all these forms that I'm filling in for the characters in the book are available to you in a blank format.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and so you can download them and you can fill them in with all your
That's
stuff.
cool. Yeah, I like that because you can practice. You can practice.
You can practice, and some of them are in Excel format, so you can fill in your numbers and see how the totals come out. And we don't like that, and then change some numbers around and see how it comes out.
Yeah, the way you put that together is terrific. Your websites are great. Give those websites again, because I think that's really important for folks to be able to have that access.
Okay, for the first book, it's called Finding Home Book, with no S, just findinghomebook.com. And the second one is F like in finding, H as in home, O as in over, and then the number 50, 50, FHO50.com.
When you were designing those websites, one of the things is interactivity. And you have an interactive aspect to these websites. People can actually ask you questions and you'll respond.
Yes. There's a frequently asked question page in both of them, tailored to the subject matter of the respective books. And I answer a lot of questions there, but there's also a place where you can send questions to me, and I'll be happy to respond to them.
It's Michael Trickey, been on the phone with us and online here on our network here on the Jesse T Show. And Michael's been 35 years of experience in the financial services industry. His company is one of the foremost data collecting companies about everything real estate in terms of matters. He works with the government. He works with a lot of the big major banking institutions, providing them the data they use in order to map out their futures and to map out their decisions for the next year, the 5 years, 10 years, look at the trends. And you have access to all this kind of information in these books in terms of, in a colloquial kind of way, but you have the access because he wrote these with the idea of showing you, the consumer, the right way to be able to buy a property and have some reference material to go back to in case you kind of get lost along the way. Buying a house is a basic thing, but it's very difficult if you've never been exposed. And most people that don't live in a big city are not really exposed to any kind of information in terms of that. So these two manuals, so to speak, can really guide you in the right direction. Finding a Home and Finding Home Over 50 by Michael Trickey. Now, I want to ask him something about a prediction.
Well, I think that it varies by market, and making sure you're buying what you really want and need. But I think that you can buy at any time, depending on how much you have saved and how much you're able to borrow. But I've been buying properties now for almost 40 years, and I've been buying them during good times and bad. You can always find something that's going to suit your needs and will likely make you money, as long as you follow a few basic rules. And believe me, I've learned a lot of lessons over the years, which I'm trying to help people to avoid learning those lessons again.
What, not make mistakes?
Yeah, well, it seems like we all have to make a few of our own, and then it really comes home to roost. But I'm looking at the economy right now, and you've got favorable tax treatment. Still for real estate, there's some limitations on deductions for really high mortgage properties, but you have the ability, if you're a homeowner, to have tax deductions. If you're buying for investment purposes, You can also have deductions for depreciation and other factors. When you sell the properties, you get favorable capital gains tax treatment. It's just a way to, over time, gain wealth, and in the interim, to have it be building it on a tax advantage basis.
Yeah, it's interesting. Not getting too involved in it because we're quickly running out of time. But there was a recent report that just came out today about the Trump Tax Act, the new tax code that's being utilized right now. And going into the season, everybody was amok and crazy and worried about, hey, we're not making this refund, we're not getting this refund. But the actual statistics the IRS just released today so far, what they've accomplished is that most folks are getting about the same amount of money that they got last year at the same time. It isn't changed that much at all. In fact, they're getting $4 more back instead of $4 less. So the hullabaloo about that, it's still very favorable for real estate. Basically, everything stayed the same, and it's good there. But also, do you think that Trump and his going after the Fed, trying to get off the fiat financial fractionalized market system created in 1913, do you think Trump, if you think that's going to deal with the buying market with regards to the Fed, if they start moving towards that?
I think that I'm very bullish on that. Yes, I think that that'll be very favorable, and it would be a whole nother show to go into all the details as to why.
Yeah,
but I do, and the other thing that I think is favorable is, look, companies are coming back now that the corporate tax rates have been lowered. They're repatriating dollars from earnings overseas. They're bringing jobs back, and that's going to build a real underlying economic strength in the economy, and that has a long-term, very favorable implication with regard to home prices.
Plus, in the last couple of weeks, especially the last 7 to 9 days, the interest rate bottom has dropped. I mean, it's amazing how far the interest rate went down in the last 9 to 10 days. It blows me away.
Yes, that's correct.
It's amazing that with all these things that are happening, and home ownership is up everywhere, except, of course, in the most expensive zip codes where it's really difficult, like here in L.A. County. It's, the amount of money you make, the housing prices, because of the supply and demand issue, has just gone beyond the means of most people, unless you're making six figures a year or you got two people in a family making six figures a year. But for the rest of the country, when you start looking where most of the people are living and the rest throughout the country, home ownership is spiraling. More and more people are buying now than they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
I agree. And we're also seeing some trends in some areas where there's multi-generational living.
Oh, that's coming back?
Yeah, with grandparents and their grandchildren.
Huh.
You see a skip of a generation. You see a lot, with the people who are around 60 who have aged parents.
Mm-hmm.
And senior living can become very expensive, and sometimes it's more economical to have the elder parents living in the same household with you.
Right.
We also see 3 generations living together, because some of the younger folks are still in college or advanced degrees or whatever, and they're still living at home. So you have the grandparents, the kids, and the parents all living in the same home.
Well, I'm glad that you said, aged people, 60. You're reminding my son and my daughter, because they think I'm aged. But, really aged is like 80. So you made me feel a little bit good there that I'm not so aged.
And that's part of what, in finding a home over 50, some of the factors for you to think about,
mm-hmm.
because we are all living longer, and so you have to plan for a longer period of time. You doesn't mean you have to stop working, but you may scale back, and that's still, in one definition, that is retirement. You're not working your old full-time job anymore. You've changed what you're doing.
Right.
So you have to think about the fact that you're going to live longer, and there's lots of Social Security strategies that go with that I go through as well.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of younger people starting to look at the marketplace of millennials now as they approach late 20s and early 30s. We're starting to see them look at the marketplace and saying, well, I got to get to doing something here. Prices have gone so high so fast, and I've got to get to do something right now. Is that trend happening across the country as well as far as your data is concerned? Are the millennials starting to buy now?
Yeah, there's more activity, definitely more activity. As you start to get to the age where, you want to have children or your needs are changing, oftentimes settling down, having a place that's a little more stable, having a place that you can start to have a garden or, more room for your pets or whatever becomes desirable. And so that's the age that millennials are moving towards, yes.
That's what I keep telling Mama T. I need more room out in the backyard when I get in trouble. The little doghouse out there isn't big enough for me anymore.
I can't help you with that.
Oh, I thought you could. You talked about that, what do you call it, the 7-year what? What do you call that, the 7-year...
7-year stupid cycle.
Hey, well, look at, man, I'll be lucky if anything in my whole life lasts 7 minutes.
So your cycle's a little shorter.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I keep lying about it, I'm a professional politician. Oh, baby, it's not that short. No, thank you very much. No. Just turn the lights down a little lower. Thank you. Okay, here, have another glass of wine. Oh, Lord help me. I think I just got myself in trouble again. As usual, I always do. It's been great hanging out with you, Michael. I mean, there's so much to cover. You have so much information, so much data, so much knowledge behind what you're talking about. Folks, seriously, you got to get these books. These books, they are a step-by-step manual, especially this book for you young guys, the millennials and the Gen Xers. That means everybody under the age of 50 down to about 20. This book, Finding Home, is a great, great, great book to have. It really is. There's so much... It's an easy read, too. That's the thing I like about it. The information, which can be very confusing, and you often don't have the opportunity to learn it from anybody, even your broker, for that matter, or your loan broker, your mortgage broker, your real estate broker. They don't want to tell you a lot of this stuff either. It takes a lot of time, but this is a great manual. Get it, Finding Home. You can get it online. And the website for that one, again, Michael, is?
FindingHomeBook.com.
So findinghomebook.com, you can ask questions. And then for those of you who are over 50 up, and that's Lee Baby Michaels here. He's 123. So you can still buy a house, my friend. It's okay, all right? Okay. Yeah, that's all right. No problem. I'll take care of you, baby. That's right. I told you got me around me for the rest of my life, right? The rest of your life. I'm going to be checking out in a few minutes. Okay. Michael Trickey here, Finding Home Over 50. Anybody over 50, get this book. I'm telling you guys, Jesse T doesn't lie. Get this book. What's the website for this one, my friend?
FHO, like Finding Home Over, FHO50.com.
Okay, you got to get these books. Get these books, and we're posting all this up. It turns into a podcast on YouTube here, as well as Twitter, LinkedIn, Blogger, Tumblr, and everywhere else, Instagram and Facebook.com/Jesse Terrero. Saying hi to Deshaun McMillan, Vanessa Smith, saying hi to Melissa Sandin, saying hi to my escrow officer, Donna Nelson. Yeah, Donna, that's right. Hey, would you get those escrows closed for me so I can get paid? Thank you, and I can get myself out of trouble because money always works. John Pavlenko, Lee Michaels even checked in. Oh, well, that's nice, Lee. Thanks. Dee Craig checked in, and Clark Tang, Seafood Clark Tang, Jay, Pauline, Dana, R.J. Johnson. I like that guy's name. Antonio, David Smith, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Just wanted to thank everybody for checking in. Michael Trickey, everybody. Terrific financial expert. Check these books out and podcast this show. Listen to it. Take some notes and go to his website. Ask him some questions. Hey, Michael, this show will cost you exactly a beautiful Chicago-style pizza, okay?
You got it.
I want a pizza pie. Quick, what's best? Thick or thin? Lee, which one for you?
Thin.
Oh, he's the New York man. Give me that thick, baby. That's right. Right. Well, I don't want a thick baby. I just want a thick pizza. Right. Okay. Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jesse.
You're the best. Thanks for your patience, brother. We'll talk to you. And we got a lot to catch up on. Thanks a lot. Michael Trickey, everybody. Get his book, Finding Home Over 50. Great books. Go to his website, findinghome.com, and check it out. You can check him out in the Jesse T Show here. We'll be continuing on here with $1 Million Money Making Monday, but we're going off the network right now. We're going to go onto our Facebook.com / an Instagram network separate from the powerofvoices.com. So good to have you along with us. Thanks a lot. We will talk to you here in a little while, and have a great day. Good night. Goodbye. See you later. I was waiting for my music, man. Where's my music? I mean, come on. If you play the music, play it.